Okay, welcome everybody, and wonderful to be with you in this space again today. And recognizing though that today is our final session in our Living Life series, but it is also our final session in this journey of intentional choices and the journey that we have taken over April, May, and June. And so my question today is, well, which wolf do you feed? Now, I don't know if you've heard that folklore story where both you and I, men and women, have inside of us two wolves at any one time. And depending on the wolf that we feed is going to be what is going to be displayed to other people, and is going to be how we show up in life. And so we've really gone through this journey of the cycle of talking through how you can support yourself and make intentional choices in your life to live your life to its fullest. And so today I want to ask you the question, how do you close things off? You know, when you come to the end of an activity, a project, a big job, or an evening, or a dinner together with your wife or your husband or your partner, how do you end up closing things off? And particularly, do you feed the wolf inside of you that is related to appreciation? Or do you kind of go, oh, well, that's done. And if you could see me at the moment, you see my hands sort of slapping together. That's done and it's done. Which wolf do you feed in your life? And we're going to just focus on that today. So I'd like us just to go through a sense of reflection and what it is that we actually focus on when we appreciate things. And so I want you to think about it like, you know, a big buckle. I always think of those cowboys that have those big buckles on their belts. I don't know if you have them, or otherwise a brooch. I don't often see them in ladies, but it's like a brooch. And I want you to think about, do you focus on your achievement brooch? It's not achievement, appreciation in your life and a deeper meaning for what you're getting out of a moment? Or do you in fact focus on that sense of, okay, you know, it's done and now I'm moving on to the next exercise, the next process, and you take your journey of life in that way. So we're going to reflect on that with the aim of really taking responsibility for the impact that that has in our lives and how it shows up in our lives. And ultimately, we're going to look at the sort of summarize and look at the act of appreciation and what it actually means to us in our lives. So as we go through this, I want you to really just now, if you've got a piece of paper and a pen next to you, or you've got a journal that you've been sort of writing in, anything that you can kind of reflect on, I want you to think about now, do I stop and actually appreciate, smell the roses, pay attention to what's just happened in my life, or do I move on really quickly? And I go, okay, that's it, well done, off I go, and I move on to the next thing. So that's our exploration for today, and I think it's very appropriate because we're going into a journey of, at the end of our journey that we've spent in the biggest, over this time, we've gone through that focus on how we can make choices about ourselves, and we've gone through a focus of really working through that. So where are you at as you've gone through this journey? And are you in that appreciation mode, or you're at the kind of, I'm ready, let's move on, go to the next thing situation? So as we go into this wolf and we reflect on that, I'm going to use an example for both of these kind of inner wolves. And I want to emphasize that they both exist in us, right? The sense of, yes, let's move on, and the sense of, I can reflect on my journey. And I want to use, in a way, I want to kind of end off with a sense of an example expressing an appreciation to the PRB and our IOPSA for you to actually recognize where you lie in this appreciation space. So if I'm actually this guy that says it's done and it's all done and I'm over with, I might say, okay, thanks very much, PRB and our IOPSA, wonderful. I got the chance to come and connect on a weekly basis. Thanks so much, great. And you move on. Or you could think about your thinking and really start to decide what is the meaning that this has held for you over a period of time. So let's try it, and I'm going to use an example now. And or I want you to imagine, I want you to almost now reflect on how you would appreciate this time. So I'm going to just make the observation. I really want to thank the PRB and our IOPSA for investing in this time, not only from a monetary point of view for my time, but actually for being here and for organizing it and all the background work that happens. Because that has satisfied, and that's the observation we're making, okay? That has satisfied a need in me to actually discover and explore the options of actually connecting with people in this way, of coming together and working in a remote kind of coaching way, kind of share way, connection way. And so it really has satisfied that need in me to discover different alternatives to connect with the communities. And it may left me feeling with a sense of warmness in my heart. I feel really tender-hearted and open-hearted as a result of having had that experience. Now, I want you to just reflect on how you might have expressed your appreciation in that moment. And that brings me to this concept that we have been speaking about almost as a theme the whole time. The way that we think, feel, and behave, that creates memories for us. And that's what we are coaching to, right? We are constantly coaching to that process for you and I. We are coaching your thinking, your feeling, and your behavior, because it's that combination that creates the memories in each of us. It's that combination that says, yes, I'm going to continue to behave in that way. So I want you now, just take a moment, pause, put the pause button on. And you know, last week I asked you, how many of you think about your thinking? And here I'm going to pause and ask you, think about how you think and how you feel and how you behave when it comes to appreciation. Just take a moment when you reflect on this and pause that button. Where are you in this space? Because it does affect the meaningfulness that we create in our lives. And often we are so busy rushing to the next thing because that's done, that we forget that the journey is part of the destination. It's not just the destination. The actual journey is what often creates, and it's that hunt to get the food that actually creates the appreciation of life. So let's look at that meaningfulness and check your own patterns when it comes to this, please. Just take a moment and check your own patterns. So that the concept of happiness is directly connected to us taking responsibility for how we experience our lives. And so I want us to recognize this concept that no one else is responsible for happiness. We are in charge of our choices, of our happy, how fearful, whatever emotion we create in our lives and how we respond to a situation, we are in control of. But today I want us to focus on happiness, because we're coming to the end of a journey where you have invested maybe this session only, or a number of sessions. You have invested your time and your time and effort to be here. And I want you to think about that choice that you're making about, okay? So we're at the end of that process. So let's look at happiness. It is a joy you have, living meaningful, good life, and revolves around your ability to focus on the positive and to connect with others. I'm ringing these words because it's an interesting thing when we are learning and adapting to new concepts. It's important to actually ring them. It actually creates in our brain a connection to those that which is different to highlighting or just underlying them. So if you're wondering why on earth is she ringing them, that's the reason why. To connect with others and to have a meaningful relationship in the community. So I want to ask you now, how often do you say the words, I appreciate you? And I'm going to ask it again. How often do you say the words, I appreciate you? And I don't want you just to stop there. I want you to go, how often do I express why I appreciate you? Because that's going to help you personally connect to the patterns of your own thoughts and how you manage and how you create meaning in life. So I've given you that brochure as a handout of Speaking Peace into the World. And on the second page, if you access that brochure now, you are going to see the kinds of needs that we create in our lives when we think, feel, and behave. we are always accessing this pattern, this continuous pattern. It's like a continuous learning cycle that we go through, right? To create that wolf in us, to feed the wolf we want to show up. We are continuously doing that. And that creates the memories, which ultimately creates the habits. So we're going to now take that brochure, and I want you to start to connect. It's an underestimated brochure. It's kind of underrated. It is a host of wisdom that we don't always recognize. And I want you now to imagine that you are this dot. And I'm going to switch on the webcam for just a moment so that you can see me, okay, and experience what it is like to just acknowledge this in yourself. Now, I don't know how many of you appreciate yourselves, and so I want you to think about this as you. We often find it easier to appreciate other people, but we don't find it easy to appreciate in ourselves what we have done and how we have added meaningfulness to ourselves. So now I want you to just think about for yourself. What is an observation you want to make about yourself over this period? If you want to take the lockdown period, if you want to take just this period, this period in your life, anything that you want to focus on that you know you appreciate about yourself. And I want you to look at the camera, and I want you to almost start to think about how you're going to share that with me, okay? But I'm going to share an observation about myself that I really appreciate about myself, and I'm going to use the brochure that I've given you so that you can have a sense of how to use it. Okay, so this is the brochure that you're looking at, right? Okay, so what I really want to appreciate you, Debbie, for is the fact that you will very purposefully and very intentionally do a whole lot of homework related to human behavior. Every time that you engage on human behavior, you will do that homework. You will go over and reflect on it, and you will think about things that you really want to share. And during this lockdown, that's the approach you have taken through to these weekly sessions. Really reflecting on the feedback you got from the last session, what people have shared, what Steve has shared, and you've taken that and you've actually used it. And for me, you have fed that need for you to be enriching your life and enriching other people's lives, being productive and very purposeful about your life. And I want to thank you for that and appreciate you for that, because it has made me feel so much more excited about the journey. Can you see? We are observing, we are making an observation about ourselves. We are expressing the need we satisfy in ourselves because that has meaning for us. And we are expressing the feeling we have. But just take a moment to realize how easy or how difficult was that for you? Could you do it? And if you could do it, I'd like you to go to your dial now and put up your hand. Yes, I could do it. And I could follow those steps. Put up your hand if you could do it. It would be lovely to see how easy it was or difficult it was for you to do it with yourself. And just become aware of the kind of thing it makes you think about and how connected you've become to yourself, because that's what I'm asking you to do, is just take a moment to pause and recognize yourself and what you can appreciate in yourself as you go forward. Can you see it builds this thinking, feeling, behavior pattern in ourselves? It builds that belief in ourselves. It builds our confidence in ourselves, which is about our self-belief. So let's now take a look at how are you when you appreciate others. Now, I absolutely want to take, if you could imagine that each of these little dots is others. And again, as you think about it, I want you again to just experience what it is like to look into somebody's face as they appreciate you. And I might be using somebody else, but just take a look and experience what this is like to see me looking at you. And I really hope that this webcam use is not affecting your ability to hear things. But I will come back to those hands that were up just now, okay? So I want to take the time to appreciate Steve. And I've chosen Steve, and Steve, I've chosen you, not because you're the guinea pig, but because I genuinely want to take the time to appreciate you. So I appreciate you because, and here's my observation, Steve not only set up these webinars in your interest to create a community of support over this time where there's been huge challenge in the external community. Not only have you set up the webinars and taken the time to do that, but you have walked the talk. You have been here every single session. You have shared your war stories. You have shared your contribution in your heart. And you have shared the experience that you have picked up from members in this community. And I appreciate you because that satisfies a need in me to connect with people who walk their talk, who are authentic, who live the life that they say and they speak about. And I want to thank you for that and appreciate you. It has made me feel very much connected to you in this space. So I want to pause. How was that for you? Just to experience someone looking at you and appreciating you for something you have done. I can get a sense how this starts to actually help and empower the other human being to really recognize what in their behavior, what it is about them that you appreciate and what adds value to them. And so when we reflect on this, you come back to that example last week of how we create energy. You know, this might be me and me appreciating me. And this may be the kind of you and each of the people around me. And we've set up this space through our choices to actually share. We create memories and habits. We create input into other people's choices to decide on what kind of habit do they want to develop, what kind of space do they want to create between you and I, what kind of space do I want to create with other people. And so we take responsibility by doing this. We are taking responsibility for ourselves and for the meaningfulness and the happiness and the joy we create in our lives moment by moment. We don't just rely on the external environment to create our happiness, because that's nonsense. Nothing in our external environment can make us feel happy. We choose it. And by slowing down, just in a moment, like a dinner, instead of saying, okay, that was a great dinner, if you could just turn around and say, wow, that dinner, that flavor in that meal really satisfied a need in me to experience a whole lot of new tastes. And I felt so excited about that meal, and I felt like I appreciated the effort it took into that meal. And I feel like you really took my needs into account. Wow. How different is that one sentence compared to a sentence of great meal? Now that person is empowered and informed. So let's reflect on this concept of appreciation for a moment. I've just attached some words for you that I think will just create the story. You know, I've taken the word appreciate and just said, how can we start to attach words to each letter of the word appreciation, so that you could just have a sense of connecting to the word appreciation and the acts of appreciation. So for me, it is about acknowledging personal attributes, behaviors, and views and thoughts, and other people's personal behaviors and thoughts and views, with real examples with that they can actually relate to. They can see what it is that creates meaning for me, what kind of feeling I choose to have, with examples of these real examples, with compassion. And I want to pause here. The C for in appreciation is with compassion. So when we appreciate someone, we are not adding but or and. I want you to do this and also this. No. We are not judging them in the moment of appreciation. We are focused just on the appreciation. So the compassion is recognizing them directly and actually recognizing what exists in them exists in me, but I'm doing it without judgment at that time. I'm just acknowledging them for the specialness of their act. And it needs to include their actions or behaviors or whatever it is that you observe, and what need it satisfied in you, and the feeling it created in you, so that they get the full picture. It's like an experience that they have when you share that sentence. And that is when we show our act of responsibility. We take responsibility for the trust, and empowering others and ourselves in relationships. So let's look at that word appreciate in 3 different levels. Okay, I want us to now just look at the level. The first level, it is acknowledging ourselves and others. So we don't in our evening acknowledge ourselves, right? But at the end of the evening, we can come away. We won't thank ourselves publicly, but we might come away thanking ourselves when we leave that evening, because that's the contribution we made to a good evening. And we acknowledge other people. We use real examples. Can you see that's the how we do it? It's sitting over there. And now we look at the third part, which is the impact we have for taking responsibility in how we actually deliver the appreciation. Okay? So as we come to the close of this process, I want us to just for a moment look at the steps that we have gone through. So the first step, as you would have seen, would be the observation. What is it that I do? Now, for those of you who are currently looking somewhere else or distracted at this moment, I want you to come back to the screen, because I really want you to try and see if you can recognize an observation now that you have had over this time, either today or over the time of the series that we have had. What observation have you made? What need has it satisfied for you or not? Because remember, although this is an active appreciation, I have no problem with you sharing where your needs have not been met. But it would be nice for you to focus on active appreciation, because that allows you, we can always talk about when our needs are not met, but it's so much harder when our needs are met. What need has this met? The next step is the feeling it left with you. And finally, I really want to encourage you to just say thank you when somebody says, gives you appreciation. So often, and I'm going to put on the webcam now as we prepare to close, so often when people appreciate us, we go, it was nothing. Don't worry, it was nothing. Wow. All we had to do was stop and say thank you, because the person thought about what they actually want to thank you for, what they appreciate you for, and how you make them feel. Don't just go, no, sit still, say thank you. Look at them and say thank you and acknowledge it. So now here's your opportunity. I want you now, please, to just reflect for a moment on what is happening for you. Take a moment and reflect just for a moment what is happening for you. What is your observation, your need, your feeling, your thank you? And as we close, I want you to now take time to say what it is you would like to express in terms of appreciation for yourself, for someone else, and share it on your chat line. It can be about the session, it can be about your journey, it can be about you or someone else. I don't mind. It's a wonderful way for us to see kind of this connection. You know, when we do this sense of appreciation, I'm going to just draw a little diagram on my slide now, but there's a sense, I don't know if you've ever seen this affinity slide, there's a sense of a connection that kind of goes between the two of us. And I want us to just create that connection now as we're checking out of this session. It is our final session. Let's share with the chat line what's come up for you, but particularly if you can, share an act of appreciation. I don't need to know who it's directed at. It would be lovely just to experience it.